I don't want to invest in founders who are comfortable with a good enough exit. By the time I left, the revenues were 520 million per year. My only limited partner is my wife. And first and foremost, holding back your horses. Nobody starts a company to turn the world into a worse off place. We have significantly fewer venture capital firms, significantly less money flowing into this asset class. If there's an opportunity to build something great globally, let's do it.
Today, I'm joined by Marius Istrate, a key player in Romania's startup ecosystem, chairman of TechAngels Romania, and former driving force behind UiPath's explosive growth. So basically, let's dive into your story. Can you just share with me really how you got into angel investing and venture capital industry? Because I think your story is really, really impressive that you went from development, being actually developer yourself, to driving the angel ecosystem in Romania. And for me, it sounds very inspiring to anyone who is in software development. So how comes?
Okay. So first of all, hi, Uliana, and thank you for having me. So to your question about how I got into angel investing from development, it wasn't a straightforward path. I graduated computer science in 2008 and started working as a developer. And this was a transformative time, as you might recall. This was the time that the mobile phone was really taking off, that we were beginning to have some interesting apps on our phones, like social media, some ride sharing apps, apps like Airbnb. So despite the financial crisis, you really had this transformation of the economy. So I was always quite interested in the phenomenon, in the transformative effect that technology companies can have on the economy. And remember how back then naively we thought that all technology will be for good. But yeah, I was always interested in it. And then when I met UiPath in 2016 in Romania, in a country that's essentially lagging behind from the point of view of the angel and venture capital ecosystem, this makes it further more interesting to identify a company with the potential of UiPath, where you had really smart, really hardworking people who wanted to build a generational company. So I just jumped at the opportunity to go in. I was leading a technical assessment and technical recruitment company at that stage, and UiPath was one of our customers. But I wanted to join them, so I left my role as CEO of a company and went in as chief people officer of UiPath. But the purpose was always, to contribute to a company that I thought had an amazing shot at being a great exit and becoming what it is today, with again the purpose of reinvesting eventually, because I believe you have to put your money where your mouth is.
For our audience, I just probably want to highlight that UiPath is a software development company, global one, focused on robotic processes, automations, and it has its headquarters in Romania. And you, as a chief people officer, being there, I read that you actually grown the company from 120 to 3,000 people in 3 years.
Yeah, you're right. So the company was started in Romania. It's been headquartered in New York for a while now, and it's listed on the New York Stock Exchange. It was Romania's first unicorn company as a software product company, the leader in robotic process automation today. And when I joined, it was a pre-Series A company with revenues somewhere around $4.6 million, if I remember correctly, and about 100 employees at the time I officially joined. By the time I left, the revenues were 520 million per year. So three years later, it's more than 100x growth in 3 years. And in terms of number of people, we had grown to about 3,000 people, had gone through a round of layoffs also. And we had gone from a company that was mainly in Romania and India to a truly global company with offices in about 27, 28 countries around the globe. So yeah, it was quite a journey.
Interesting. May I just ask the question which I think many would be interested to know, because did you also had an option in that company, which basically you exited later on?
Everybody did. Everybody did.
Did.
Yeah, so UiPath had and still has this philosophy that the growth should be shared amongst everyone. So everyone from the bottom up, from the cleaning lady and the administrative staff had options
Wow.
up to the C-level. Everyone.
It's what I assumed because I know that quite often those who've been in a companies having some option exited eventually turn into angel investors. What I actually thought when I read your bio, it's also that being a chief people officer in such a large company and growing it would definitely give you a good understanding of people's skills. So, do you leverage this skill right now to identify founders, successful founders when you're investing in startups?
When you invest very early on, so pre-seed or inception level, as some call it, it's all about the founders. And I think, listen, I can't pride myself in properly evaluating people's skills right now just from conversations with them, but I can definitely evaluate their motivations. And then you have, external elements that can help you validate the skills. But in terms of motivation, I like to think that I can understand where their motivation lies. And beyond motivation, it's a question of character, of being a good judge of character. I think what the role of chief people officer at UiPath has done for me, and previously the role of CEO at Skill Value has done for me, is that it has put me in a position of playmaker between different types of stakeholders. Which is, as a chief people officer within a company, you have to negotiate between parties with sometimes diverging interests. And that puts you in a very interesting paradigm where you have to sit still and listen and not judge. And I think that is a very helpful thing that you should know how to do if you start investing.
So, what is your thesis on angel investing? Because I saw on your LinkedIn about 17 investments. Is it
Yeah.
is it 17 right now?
So there are actually 26 in total right now, but I can't advertise all of them. My investment thesis is mainly revolves so from a technical standpoint to invest in companies that are targeting enterprises and business to business, or can be business to consumer, but mainly companies that sell to or through businesses, if possible. Obviously, deep tech and everything AI related right now I find pretty exciting, but deep tech, not AI wrappers. I invest in serial founders or serial executives, so people who have either led a business or led a team or led a department in a company before. I don't do investments in first time founders just because I find that the journey is so hard that it's good to have checked some prerequisites like hiring and firing somebody and knowing how to manage at least basic conflicts and tricky situations. And then one last thing that really has kind of evolved more over the past year and a half, I would say. I care about founders who are intentional about building a generational company. Like I don't want to invest in founders who are comfortable with a good enough exit. I want to invest in founders who are adamant about an exceptional outsized exit. And there was one other element to my thesis, but I realized I don't necessarily have to do something special for it. That 50% of the teams I invest in must have a diverse founder in one form or another. But in Eastern Europe, that happens anyway, as there are the percentage of, for example, ladies in technology is much higher than the European average. So being an investor in this part of the world, I thought I had to be intentional about it. As it turns out, it's been balanced at around 50%, give or take a couple of points throughout my past 5 years. So I no longer list it as an element of my thesis if it happens by default.
Yeah, interesting, and definitely very very hopeful that there is a diversity in the startup industry. I can see it myself as well as a fintech founder, right,
Mm-hmm.
from Eastern Europe. I've wanted to ask you, like, how actually your approach to selecting startups has changed from a very beginning when you made your first investment and to now, not just from perspective of the thesis, but really from perspective of this kind of the red flags or green flags that you see now more clearly than you have been seeing before?
I think the best way to describe the evolution is really how I regard the top of the funnel and how I go about filtering at the top of the funnel. And I've gone from opportunistic to intentional. And I think a big part of that decision was, joining TechAngels and now leading TechAngels, which is the largest angel group in the region, not just in Romania. But this really gave me some clarity that, you can't be just wait around and sit for the opportunities for the good ones to come up. I mean, I did that in the beginning, and I sort of had a short list or top of mind or a mental map with a few individuals that I was following that I hoped would start a business, or that I maybe nudged towards starting a business. Some of them very early on, but there's so much more that you don't see or that you can't see, right? So being part of an angel group has helped me turn a little bit from opportunistic to intentional, to seeing a lot more pitches, to training this muscle of identifying great companies. And then I think the second part of this switch happened because I started to attend a lot more events in the region with the purpose of building a reputation, building legitimacy as an angel. So yesterday I was in Budapest. I'll soon be in Slovenia, and then in Bulgaria. I traveled the region sort of in this playground that I have, which I call east of Vienna, south of Budapest, southeastern Europe, if you want to call it that. It's important to show up. You cannot hope to have a quality deal flow if you don't show up for these things. So I think this is something important that has changed for me.
Do you like to go for demo days, or usually what kind of events actually you attend? To attend, what type of events do you tend to meet founders?
On the one hand, you have the obvious ones. These are the conferences that are organized, and almost every country has a flagship event of one type or the other. Some larger countries like Poland or Romania, they might have more. In Romania we have How to Web and Textilvania. In Slovenia, actually for Croatia and Slovenia, you're going to have Podim. For Budapest, for Hungary, you're going to have the Scale Up Fest. For Bulgaria, it's Digitalk. So these are the large conferences, right? That really get the people together. But then there are also events that are organized by the local, let's say, VC players, or events that are organized by VCs that are doing scouting in the respective country or region, some of the large ones. And I do try to attend those. I think, cultivating a healthy relationship, a collaboration relationship with venture capital firms is also important for angels. Just as I said before, it's important to show up. I think it's important for an angel to show up. You can't wait. You can't just sit back and wait with your arms crossed for deals to come your way. They won't unless you show up, unless you build relationships with people. And it's very hard to do so exclusively via Zoom. And then, of course, throughout the year, I'll do the regular trips to like London, Paris, maybe Berlin, and meet with some folks who are hopefully or ultimately the representing the funds or leading the funds that will invest at growth stages into the companies from this region that we're seeding or pre-seeding.
Cool. So Tech Romania Tech Angels is not just investing in Romania, right? So you invest actually in the region as a group. So my question really about how you split your time as a leader of the angel group, because you mentioned that you go for events, but there is also investor relations, deal closing. So I'm just wondering how you, as a leader of the group, split your time.
First of all, TechAngels is an NGO, so whatever activity related specifically to TechAngels is volunteering, like talking at conferences, doing podcasts like this, and kind of talking about the importance of angels and why we should have business angels in any ecosystem. It's work that you do in order to evangelize these concepts and grow the ecosystem. But beyond that, obviously, we have our weekly pitching sessions that I'm systematically a part of. They happen online, and once per month, we try to meet in person also for a learning session or for a pitching session. I do go in depth on the deals that I'm interested in. I organize due diligence calls at different stages based on what needs to happen, or in-depth calls with the founders. I share my findings and my research, or I ask for help from venture capital firms, or we collaborate on some of the deals. I actually, and we at Tech Angels encourage other angels also to keep a healthy relationship with venture capital firms, because capital is scarce in this part of the world. So oftentimes it's more people in a deal than just one or two or a handful of angels. And then, yeah, of course, events, conferences, as I said, showing up. And yeah, but strictly from an angel activity, that's it. And more recently, because I've been doing this for 5+ years, of course, in some of the startups, there are some opportunities for maybe exit coming up. And I try to be part of that and try to play an active advisor role to the CEO if it's a business that I have been invested in.
Is it M&A exits, or there is signs of the IPO happening?
No, for the stages and for the types of startups I invested in, for now, I would say it's more the opportunities are M&A type. But of course, I wish that some of them grow to the level where an IPO is the outcome.
And in your portfolio, can you share with us maybe some exits, successes, failures, just to give our audience of angel investors understanding what it takes to build a portfolio and what to expect from this portfolio?
Yeah, so listen, I think it's early to do that. I've made 26 investments, and as I said, and I only have two exits so far. One is a write-off, so a company where everything is lost. Another one was a positive exit, where I made more money that I initially put into the company. But typically, these early exits, they're not the representative ones for the portfolio of an angel. I think in terms of portfolio analysis, it's premature to do the analysis in at the beginning of year 6, as I would be doing it right now. The expected length of an investment cycle for an angel is somewhere between 12 and 15 years right now. I think this conversation makes more sense towards the end of such a cycle. But there are people who are a lot more experienced than I am, who have written about this, who talk about this. Like David Rose is one of my favorite examples, who used to lead a group of angels in New York, and also wrote a book called Angel Investing that I read. I recommend. I think it's very useful to try to understand portfolio size and what you should be targeting in terms of returns and how to go about it.
How actually anyone can join your group? First of all, have to join, and how you approach investing with you in the startups?
We work like an angel club, so we don't recommend to invest in something. We simply present opportunities via our platform, our deal flow platform, to our members, and they are free to make a choice on whether to invest or not in startups. They have to self-organize for the due diligence, for the term sheet, for discussing with that startup. So we just provide the know-how and the infrastructure, but the decision is always the member's decision. It's very easy to join us. It's an online application, and afterwards it's a screening process by our members and our board, where if people already know you and you're backed by people from the community to say, this is somebody we know and trust, then you enter straight away. Otherwise, we organize an interview and we try to understand your motivation and why you want to join. And then, of course, there's an onboarding guide and process to get you to have a feel for what's going on in our community in Tech Angels. And then, I typically tell members, or I recommend to them, not to invest in the first few months, especially since there isn't an obligation to invest at Tech Angels. So once you become a member, you pay a membership fee, which covers our infrastructure costs, but you're not obliged to invest. And it's rather healthy to sit back and learn and see what others are asking and how they are evaluating startups before you make the decision to invest. And then our members do about 80% of their investments here in Romania. But as you said before, it's not just Romania. They also invest abroad. So in surrounding countries, or sometimes in the diaspora, of course. I would say that it's probably that you want to have a connection, or you maybe have some connection in some form or shape to the Romanian either diaspora or community, or some relation to the country, or some interest about the country. Like the cases where somebody completely unrelated to Romania would just pop up, they don't necessarily happen. We have quite a high percentage of foreign members, but they are either living in Romania or used to live in Romania, or maybe have a Romanian partner, a life partner, or are somehow they have some chemistry, some connection with the country. Although I repeat, we don't invest in Romania only. But there is this saying in the world of angel investing that angels will invest within a 1 hour drive or a 1 hour flight from home, which is to say, you want to be there, you want to be close to the founders that you invest in, you want to make yourself available for them. And it's really hard to do that if you, with 10, 20 investments, you invest in 8 very different places around the globe.
Actually, for someone to join you, are there any fees for membership or syndicated that you build around this startup?
So there is only an annual membership fee of €500 for members. There are no other fees. When members choose a syndication platform, we give them a benchmark of what the options are, right? What's out there on the market. But then depending on where their target is, when their company is, where they want to invest in is, depending on what they prefer as a form for the SPV or the syndicate, they are free to make their choice. And when they make their choice, they should be aware of the corresponding fees, which we make them aware of, but it's not something that TechAngels is involved with. Although, for many of the platforms we use to syndicate, we have some form of discount, either directly as TechAngels or because we are members of European Business Angel Network, so EBAN, and also BAE, Business Angels Europe. And they offer us, as members of these European groups, we also have some discounts.
So they have to self-organize in
Yes,
order to invest in a certain startup.
yes, absolutely, yes,
Yeah, so sounds like it working more like an angel network rather than the angel syndicate.
yes, that is
Because
correct.
as we work also with syndicates, I started to understand that it's quite a difference between the angel network and the angel syndicate. Because just for our audience again to understand a bit the difference, angel network usually is a membership organization where deal flow is shared, but you mostly self-organize to create the SPV. Maybe 5 of you who decided to invest in this startup, you need to have a lead who gonna organize it within the group. And in angel syndicate is more like you already have a syndicate lead who investing and calling you to co-invest with them and organizing the process. And in most of the cases, there is a membership fee for angel networks, where the benefit is also having the events
Yes,
and connecting with each other. I actually hear it is very attractive for many angels to be part of such network, because it's usually high net worth individuals who are members of the group, leaders in the industries, owners of different businesses. So it's quite nice way of connecting with people. And also on an angel syndicate side, it's usually no membership fee, but there is a fee for anyone who is joining the SPV to cover the cost of the syndicate lead for due diligence, and also for a cost of the platform where administration of such SPV and deal is done. Just really because I feel sometimes it's not clear for angels to
it's
understand the
true.
difference.
It's true. Or for somebody who wants to become an angel, I think it should be explained. It did.
And for someone who is actually want to become an angel and never had this experience, how you advise to go with it? Is it to try direct investments in startups they like, or is it actually through some kind of the network where you can cooperate in one way or another?
I don't think there's one ideal way or one good way to do it and a bad way to do it. What I would say is we live in a world where there are so many opportunities and events and possibilities to connect with existing angel networks, with venture capital firms, with startups. I think before you decide to do it and before you decide to put some money in, you have to understand the risks and you have to understand the opportunities. I don't regard it as just an opportunity to network, right? This is not something that I do or that, and to be fair, a lot of the angels that are intentional about this, they don't do this for the networking opportunities. There is a financial reasoning behind it. With a large enough portfolio, you actually have a shot of being one of the first checks into a company that goes hundreds X or thousands X, right? Which is where you want to be because it returns everything you have invested up to then and more once it exits. So there is financial reasoning behind it, and it's important to understand it. Yes, there is this pleasure and I think privilege of being part of what is nascent in the world of technology, being first to see what people come up with, right? But also, you should expect as an angel that you're going to filter out some stuff that is trivial. It's you've seen before. I mean, there's for every very good startup that you're going to see tens of startups that are nearly that are very bad, let's say, not nearly as good. And then, prepare to be disappointed because even in opportunities where you might want to invest, there might not be sufficient allocation for you. And then you have to think about building your own reputation, your own brand, your own legitimacy as an angel. And again, I come back to this idea of showing up, showing up where the events are, showing up where startups are. So I think my view is that this is the way to go about it. Learn to be patient, learn to say no. I think saying no thousands of times for every time you say yes to, or maybe hundreds or thousands of times before you say yes to a startup. And first and foremost, holding back your horses. I don't think angel investing is about deploying capital within a time frame because you don't. I always joke that my only limited partner is my wife. You don't have limited partners and you don't have a finite time duration for your fund, right? In this sense, you have a little bit more flexibility. You should leverage that opportunistically and you're not obliged to invest. And it's actually not indicated to go fast and to deploy your capital fast, even if this means you're going to miss out on some great ones. It's fine. There are going to be other ones.
Yeah, it would be nice if you can elaborate really what is your target portfolio size to statistically be there for one big exit?
I think, again, I'm not inventing this. I'm just quoting from people who have more experience than I am. 25 to 40. But from what I'm seeing right now, and given the complexity of exiting some of the startups, I think I'm personally more comfortable in area of 25 to 30 for the volume of work that it involves. I don't know. I think had I been in a more mature ecosystem, someplace like New York or maybe London or maybe why not Silicon Valley, maybe I would have gotten in a tad more startups. But here I feel like this is a comfortable level for the expected return and for the amount of work to put in.
Some people say 60, but I rather agree with you. And it really depends from my knowledge and perspective at what stage you also get in. Because usually if you have appetite for early stage, like pre-seed or seed, so then probably the portfolio have to be larger. And if you're mixing it with maybe Series A, Series B startups, so then you can go lower in the number of companies, right? Is it
Yeah.
something that you approaching a similar way?
So yes, to respond with two things. First of all, I agree with the 60 startups assumption if we're counting over, but we have to think about over how many years we're counting, right? Like I've been doing this for 5 years now. I'm in the sixth year of investing. I expect that by the 10th year, I will have invested into something more like 50, maybe not 60, but 50 startups, right? So on a full time scale of like 10 years, maybe, yeah, maybe it's 50, 60. I don't know. We'll see. So it also depends on the number of years. And to be frank, I would prefer to do some Series A every now and then, especially since in this part of the world, in Central and Eastern Europe, you tend to have some Series A that are more the size of a late seed in Western Europe or the United States. So as an angel, it is possible to get into those if you believe the company still has room to do, 100x. And I would prefer to do some of those rounds and maybe less of the pre-seed ones. Or that's a preference that I have right now. Who knows, that might change also.
Do you see that actually there is a competition, especially in your region, right? Because I assume in UK, US, because so many startups actually going there, there is more competition between startups rather the competition between investors to get in the best startups. In regions, right, where startup investing and actually the startup ecosystem is smaller, I assume less startup and a bit more competition between investors to get in those who are actually showing as signs of being really successful. Is it something that you see?
I think it is correct. I think it's a correct assessment, especially since we're all going after the same kind of founders and we know who they are. And unfortunately, and it's not just Romania, it's the entire region. Like there are only a few of those founders that have the audacity and the capacity to go build generational companies. And we kind of know who they are, or we figure it out really fast. So then, yes, there is a bit of competition between funds and between funds and angels and between angels. But listen, I think it's healthy. I think competition is healthy. I like competition. Of course, I'm a little bit upset when I can't make it into a deal that I consider to be very good. But that's life. And I get into others and then it's fine.
Can you tell me three actually points about the startup into which you see this competition being high? So what makes a startup really being hot from the venture capitalist perspective?
I mean, the founder, it's 99%, it's the founder or the founding team. So 99% it's the founding team. That's
And
that's
if
that's what
you
it is.
can you then
And with a good founding, the rest doesn't count. The rest doesn't count because with a very good founding team, they're not going to come up with a stupid idea.
and can you share maybe some signs of this kind of the founding team which you believe is, yeah, I can see it, they're really great in what they are doing?
So as I said previously, it is serial founders going after large enough problems. I mean, big enough problems in large enough markets. And yeah, founders who have done this before. Yeah, I think that's a very good summary of it. Serial founders going to solve a big technical problem in a large enough market.
Should they be actually exited founder, or you would consider a founder who failed but now doing, as you said, great solution for a big market?
No, so it just needs to be a founder who's tried it before, successfully or unsuccessfully. It doesn't count. But to this, I have one comment. I know we all like to drink the Kool-Aid and think that failure is such a good teacher for
Mhm.
everybody, and sometimes it is, but success is 100% a very good teacher. Failure is sometimes a very good teacher. Success is almost always, I'm not going to say always, but almost always a very good teacher. So, yes, people who have been successful, they have, I don't know, more confidence. They've got an extra gear, I don't know, in their gearbox. Something happens to them. So, um, yeah, if it's possible, founders who have had some degree of success, but it's not a prerequisite. Like a lot of serial executives, serial founders that I work with have had, a good run, but maybe not a great success story behind them.
Would you agree that actually persistence make a difference for founders?
I don't know. Sometimes it's important to know when to quit also. It's a side of the same coin. Being gritty and being resilient goes hand in hand with knowing when to quit. So I try to evaluate on both counts, not just persistence, but did they show the capacity to stop something, not to persist in something, when it was clearly, going in the wrong direction or not the right thing? I think that's an equally important question.
Yeah, absolutely. Just maybe like really to wrap up, I have few questions which I want to ask you, where you can give like maybe just one word or two words quick answer, right?
Yeah,
Kind of the quiz.
sure.
So the first one gonna be like, what is the most overused buzzword in a startup decks?
Ecosystem.
Okay. If you weren't investing in startups, what would be your profession right now?
I would be teaching.
About?
Hard to say. I am currently teaching actually venture capital valuation and, and startup valuation at an MBA, but
Okay. Nice.
probably something either science or history of science or maybe economics, history. I don't know, but teaching for sure.
Yeah, amazing. I totally agree that having your success already, the next step is really to share this success and inspiration with others. So yeah, really admire admire this approach.
Thank you.
And another one, how is important actually ESG in your decision making? Because you mentioned about diversity. I just want to know, really, ESG, does it matter?
Not explicitly, implicitly, yes.
So you would search for some impact, right?
I wouldn't I wouldn't invest in something that has a destructive effect, right? I believe startups are fundamentally ESG initiatives in a way, in a sense, because nobody starts a company to turn the world into a worse off place. The majority of founders I have met, they have this vision that the world should look different and should be better, not worse. So in this sense, every startup is, at least from the sustainability perspective, right? It's trying to create some good. That's why I'm saying implicitly, not explicitly. Explicitly, I don't care about them fitting into a box. Honestly, I don't care. I mean, I've tried it because I know that diverse teams return better economic outcomes. But as it turns out, we have in Europe, we don't have the same issues that the United States have from a socioeconomic standpoint. And I'm sorry, this is longer than a two-word answer. But it's the reality, and I think it's important to acknowledge that, especially since we're living through this phase of, acknowledging where Europe needs to be or what it should do differently. I think it's also acknowledging that from a socioeconomic standpoint, we are in a very different place from the United States. We are a more prosperous region that has, not all of it, but most of it has historically been more inclusive. And with regards to Central and Eastern Europe, let's not forget these are former communist countries where both you and I know everybody used to work, not always producing the great economic outcomes that communist countries wanted, but everybody worked. We all grew up in families where our mothers worked, where our grandmothers worked, where all of our relatives were, everybody was working. So to take that speech about diversity and inclusion that's very American and to try to adapt it into the jargon of Eastern Europe simply doesn't make sense because we grew up in a very different world. Yes, there are some social elements that we need to look at about our relationship with maybe with ethnic minorities in our countries and creating equal opportunity for, at the onset from an educational standpoint for people. But in the workplace and in the way we design and run companies, that's not where we are. So ideally, I would like to be invested in companies that solve for real problems and don't just use the jargon in the United States to kind of pay lip service to some things that simply don't make sense in Europe or specifically in Eastern Europe.
What is your split in investments into public markets, real estate, and venture? Do you actually approach your personal investments in this way?
Yeah, I do have. I do have a split, and I can tell you that my allocation into this kind of riskier asset class, which is venture capital and angel investment, is currently below 15% of what I do.
Yeah, and what you've been saying about Europe, I really agree with you. And what is your vision for or hope for a future of venture capital in Europe?
It's a vision of, being bold, being determined, and finally getting out of our own way, not being so codependent with venture capital from other parts of the world. If there's an opportunity to build something great globally, let's do it. But the globe doesn't start in New York and end in Seattle. It actually, the sun rises in Tokyo first, not in New York or in London. It first rises in Tokyo, and then it sets on the other side of the world in Hawaii, maybe in the United States. But I can assure you, there's a reason why we call Japan the sun where the sun rises. So if we want to talk globally, we can talk globally looking east in the sense of democratic democratic countries, not authoritarian ones. So I still believe that it is possible to build global companies. It's not going to be as easy as it has been, as it was in the 2010s. But as Europeans, we have a duty to ourselves to, fool ourselves a little bit by pull ourselves out of the mud in a sense. We have significantly fewer venture capital firms, significantly less money flowing into this asset class. Although there's a lot of capital sitting around in Europe because it's the most prosperous part of the world in terms of wealth created per capita. This is absurd if you think about it. And I can't phrase this better than I think the Prime Minister of Poland did. 500 million rich people asking 300 million poorer people to help us defend against 100 or so million very poor people. I mean, there's a way where we need to structure our relationships, our work together, and our prosperity, structure this prosperity in a way that truly serves European citizens within the European Union and beyond. I think, the United Kingdom, I think Ukraine, I think Moldova are countries that should be equally served by this because, they are either striving or already, fully functioning democracies.
Marius, it's actually something that I totally agree, right? And there should be more confidence in Europe of its own capabilities.
Yeah,
And somehow it's have been forgotten, and it's definitely not in the best way, or not in the most pleasant way is currently reminded. But let's hope there gonna be a good really outcomes of these political
yes,
reminders to stability, prosperity, and confidence of European countries. Um,
indeed.
I really so pleased to have you in this conversation today, and really thank you that you shared your wisdom, your journey. And one of the reasons why we are actually doing this podcast is to inspire, educate more of European and global angels. And I think your story was a good, really inspirational input to that mission. So thank you a lot. To
More
all
than
our
welcome.
guests, I just want to say hit the subscribe button to see and hear from more leaders in venture capital industry. We bring here speakers from diverse communities, from diverse backgrounds. We really want to make angel investing more popular and more knowledgeable. Like not just in the top countries, but really in the countries which are now making a difference to the world. So hope we've been a little bit successful in that together with you.
Thank you for the invite, Juliana. Thank you so much.